Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune. The Steve and Adam Show.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey, I'm Adam. And we have Ben. Hey, Ben.
How's it going, guys?
What are you guys up to over there?
Oh, we're just hanging out.
Yeah, having a bit of fun.
Exactly. I figured
code.
we'd call you up to see what you're up to.
Oh, well, I've just been laying around with the flu and stuff, but, you guys said, hey, let's do some stuff, so I crawled out of bed and said, let's do this, so let's do it.
4 hours later, we're recording something.
Yeah, this is really fun.
So I wanted to get kind of real nerdy with you guys and sort of go back into some more automation stuff because that's what I love doing. I'm going to try and focus it around Intune, but I also want to give everyone a primer into VS Code and how we can do some real cool stuff with workflows and tasks in VS Code. So I guess we'll just get started with it. So recently I've had a job that's asked me to package.
You have a job? Really? You work?
Yeah, no. I don't know. From time to time, you know.
Oh, and before we go down this road, let me just, as a preface, this is an advanced Intune.training video,
yes.
So this is advanced. We'll just leave it at that.
And
I promise you I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible, but bear with me and try and follow through because this stuff will help you in the long run. I promise.
Yeah, and you may need to watch it a couple of times.
Keep the play count up, you know.
Yeah. Well, the code will be available at the end and all that sort of stuff, and then if you follow along with the videos. And so Ben's going to give us a kind of an overview of the end goal and the final product, and then we're going to start back from the beginning on how he got here.
That's correct. Okay, so the piece of work that I've been doing lately, we had a client that asked for 20 to 40 applications to be migrated from SCCM into Intune. As soon as we were told that, I immediately freaked out because that can take quite a long time, especially if you don't have a super fast internet connection like we currently deal with in lovely Australia. So what I did, yes, I can zoom. Sorry, Steve. So what I did was I developed a workflow to be part of my VS Code workflow where I normally package applications to just help me speed up the process. I built a virtual machine that was sitting in a very fast environment so that I didn't have to deal with the complexities or the issues with my slow internet connection, and then I just knocked out every single application. So that's what I want to get through now. So I'll open up VS Code.
Just to clarify, so when you say that you're packaging the application, this is similar to what Steve and I have done in the previous video where we did a Win32 application. We packaged up Microsoft Maths,
yes,
whatever you want to call it, mathematics. Yes. So we did that all through the GUI, or sort of through the GUI. We used the Intune script that was available. And so what you're going to show us is a more fully automated back-end way to do that, to accomplish that same task, right?
Correct. So put it this way, we're doing the exact same task as going into the GUI and doing it. However, the benefit of what we're doing here is that we now have the configuration of that package now as code. So we can check that in and we can source control the config of the package, which has significant benefits if you start utilizing that concept of source control. So we're going to go through and we're going to package TeamViewer because that's a very common application that most people that are doing Intune use to assist in their sort of remote support. This is the configuration file for TeamViewer 15. If we actually went back and looked at the previous video that you guys did around packaging math, you would actually find that every single field or option that I'm creating here is the exact same thing that you would do in the GUI. The benefit, again, as I was saying, is that this is now in code, and if I change this and store the thing in GitHub or in a repository like Azure DevOps, I would actually be able to see those changes and see when I changed it and why I changed it, which you don't currently have if you just simply go into the GUI. So we'll just go through this. So app name, we're obviously calling it TeamViewer 15 full client. Publisher is TeamViewer. Description. So these are all the required fields that you need for an application package. I haven't done anything else. The app URL and app file are things for the specific job that I was doing, where I was downloading the installation media, unpacking it and building it out, but we don't need to do that. The install file is, so this goes to exactly what's going to kick off our script or our package. The install command line and uninstall command line should be self-explanatory by this point. This is how the actual application gets installed on the machine, and this is how it gets uninstalled from the machine. Finally, we have some requirements and detection methods. So requirements are very simple. We're setting a minimum operating system architecture, and we're saying, do we want to run it as 32-bit or not? Finally, the detection, we have 3 options here. This is fairly basic, but it almost always works. We've got MSI, file, or registry. So file, again, with all packaging, we can choose to detect an application based on the presence or not of a file, or the version of a said file. Registry is the exact same thing, and MSI is generally the application GUID that we're going to be looking for. So in TeamViewer, we're looking for this specific GUID.
So this is, so essentially, yeah, this is just literally the instructions for, so this is not creating this script is not packaging TeamViewer. This script is the config file that's going to be passed to Intune to upload an already packaged version of TeamViewer into Intune to create a Win32 application, correct?
Kind of. The application isn't packaged yet. It's not packaged into the Win32 bundle yet. So if I open up my file thing, and I apologize if this is small, but TeamViewer, our folder, I've got the manual. So I've literally pulled this down from the TeamViewer website, and I've created a very basic install wrapper that we don't need to go into because this is just an example. But all we've got is the TeamViewer MSI. We have the install wrapper, and then we have this app.yaml file, which is just our configuration.
Okay, and so what I was referring to is your install.ps1 is the actual packaging wrapper.
Yeah, so that's what's
right?
That's what's going to do the installing for us. So I will preface this with, I'm not teaching how to package an application. I'm simply teaching, now that you've got the solution, how do you get it up into Intune?
Yeah.
So gotcha. This relies on having confidence that the stuff that you want to deploy, that it installs. Okay.
Okay. That's great. So essentially, we're just taking an already working. You've already packaged this and tested that your install script works using the command line that you've got listed there, using your PS1 file, and all of that stuff is good. And then you're just taking a working installer. If you remember our Microsoft Mass one, that's where it blew up on us, where we tried it. We put in this information and we didn't test it. And so that's equivalent to what we're doing here, except I believe Ben has actually tested. So, all right, good. Sorry.
Maybe I've tested it. Who knows? We'll find out. Yeah. Okay, so we've created the configuration file. We've saved that in the location where all our install media is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build the Win32 or the Intune Win file, and then we're going to send it up to Intune, all using VSCode. We don't need to step away from the actual environment that we built the solution in, which to me was the benefit because it improved the speed of my solution delivery. So we're going to open up the command palette with F1. And because my computer is running very slow, I'm going to freak out and click on the wrong thing. Let's try that again. Okay, I'm going to open up the command palette. We're going to select Run Task.
Whoa. What kind of wizardry did you just use to open up the command palette?
I press F1, which there's is it Control-Shift-P? Yeah, Control-Shift-P, but F1 does the exact same thing. There's a little hot tip there. Every blog...
commands in there to Control-Shift-P. That's ridiculous. F1 would have been really
F1
easy.
Does everything, yeah. Every blog that I read that tells me to press Control-Shift-P, I wish that they would say F1. It's out of the box. It's not custom. So F1 opens your command palette. It helps. Okay, so we're going to go into our tasks, and we're going to run a task. if we have a look here, I've got a couple of pre-built tasks, and that's what we're going to get into later. But essentially what we need to do at this point, because we've not packaged and we've not published this solution, we're going to do both of those things. So we're going to select the build and publish task. If we have a look at the terminal output, actually, sorry, there's one more step. We're going to ask whether the installation media is local or remote. So before, when I was saying that we've got the app URL and app file, if we were to have that stored on a like a blob store somewhere, that's where we would select remote. But because we know we have the installation media locally, we're just going to select local. And now my task kicks off. So what we're doing here is we're building the application from a PowerShell script that I've created earlier. And it's just getting the information from that YAML file that we've just gone through to actually build up the Intune Win file for us. So just give that a second.
And just as a reminder, if you're following along, this is the final product, and then he will go back through and show how he created these tasks and what they're actually doing. I must say, when you build a task, does it automatically build this awesome ASCII art for you?
It does not. I did that. I was waiting for a 6 gig application to upload. I had a little bit of time up my sleeve, so I I had some fun.
Very nice.
Yes. Okay, so the application is packaged, or it's been built. So the build process is complete. We can see that the Intune Win file has been created. And what we're now seeing here is the second part of the task. It's actually asking me for my domain admin account, or the account that I have permissions to upload the file to Intune.
So Ben, just to call this out, shouldn't it be your global admin instead of your domain admin?
It should be, but I didn't even think about that. Yes, it should be global admin, and you know what? I'll fix that, and I'll commit the code in.
Yep.
Look at that.
Do a pull request.
So the difference for the listeners, the difference between domain admin and global admin is domain admin is for your on-prem resources, while global admin is only for your cloud resources. And they're two separate admin contexts, and they don't share each other. So it's very important from terminology.
No, that's perfect. Excellent, thank you. All right, so I'm putting my global admin account into this field here. And basically what we're doing here is we're authenticating to Intune. So we'll give that a second. We should see the publish script kick off.
Now, does this actually require a global admin in order to accomplish this?
Steve might be the best person to answer this. I know that global admin gives me permission to upload files to Intune. You may be able to do it with Intune administration.
That's correct. So the minimum requirement for this will be the Intune administrator role or the relevant RBAC permissions. But for that to occur, you also need to have the graph permissions for that account to be granted to the PowerShell object, I believe, yep. Which is what Ben's using this today for the script.
Yeah, that's correct. We're using everything's as default as possible. Out of the box, most tenants should, if you've played with Microsoft Graph, you should have this access anyway. But if you don't, then it may require that global admin privileges just to accept the application into your tenant the first time.
Right. Yeah. So Graph will basically say, "Hey, I want to execute on your tenant. Will you let me?" Then you grant it access one time as a GA, and then after that, you should be able to bump your permissions back down to something more less tightly controlled.
So long as you check the box to say always for forevermore.
Yeah, that's it. All right, excellent. So I'm just putting my credentials in, I'm signing in, and then the rest is completely on autopilot, to use my favorite term. So it's literally just going through and it's building out that package for me now using the YAML file as its configuration script. So we can see that it's like all the information on how the package is actually created and uploaded or comes up in the terminal output, which is really handy for me to troubleshoot this sort of stuff. But it also shows you how much is actually going on in the back end when you simply just upload a file. It's not just uploading a file; it's actually creating all the metadata around it, and it's mapping it out and it's doing a lot of crazy stuff. So just give that a sec. It's going to start uploading the file, hopefully, if my internet doesn't die.
Is anybody ever disappointed when you were working at Microsoft, looking at any of the graph stuff, that there's not actually like a visual like sine wave on a graph? It just drives me crazy. It's like, why is it called graph? There's no graphing. Where's the pictures?
Where's the pie graphs?
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone complain about that. But,
I spent a fair amount of time researching why in the world it was called graph. Like, what am I missing? Is it an acronym? Does it stand for something? Where are the graphs? Like, where's the, like, come on. Because I'm pretty sure there at one point was a Microsoft product probably called Microsoft Graph that did math. It was probably tied in with Microsoft Maths even. Let's just tie that back in. But yeah, it's just, I never have understood the naming of what graph meant. And so I finally researched it, and it's like, nope, it just is a thing. It's just the title of the product.
You want to know a fun little tidbit? The backend API of Facebook is called Graph.
Well, there you go.
I don't know whether there's a connection there or not, but yeah.
There probably is.
I found that
one of their developers came over to Microsoft and wrote Microsoft stuff, maybe.
Potentially. So that application is packaged. We've got this final message saying it's sleeping for 30 seconds to allow patch completion. This is a little bit of legacy stuff. It's done. We can see terminal is press any key to close.
So on the graph thing, it's actually a database language that sits in SQL, and that's why it's called graph, is because it's actually it's bundling in a whole heap of resources together under a single API to make it publicly accessible. So each of the components, even inside Intune, are separate components, and then the graph is the presentation database layer associated with it.
There you go.
I just kept waiting for it to stand for something, and it just doesn't. As far as
you could make something up.
I've made up some things. I've made up some things.
Okay, so I've just popped over to the Intune.training Azure tenant, and we're in the Intune portal, and I can see that TeamViewer 15 full client is now there. So that's
guacamole.
The process of uploading an application in a completely programmatic way without ever actually going into the GUI to do any of the work. I haven't at this point set in automatic assignments because I think that's really risky, because we don't want to automatically assign and deploy an application without doing prior testing. But
come on, put it in there.
Sure. The future state is that I will have a scenario where we have test accounts and test groups, and they will automatically get assigned, and then we can do rapid testing and validation of that stuff. But for now, it's just get the application out as quickly as we possibly can.
So even without even going into the tasks piece of this and what you're going to show us there, I want to pause for a minute and just talk about how awesome it is what you've built. Like, this is huge. I mean, this is the way you described it, is you had a customer that had 20 apps that were already packaged. So you had an app with a command line and media, and you were able to take that and pass those into your YAML files to your script and automatically build them into Intune Win32 apps, package them up for Intune, and upload them automatically, programmatically. That's amazing. That's huge. So well done.
And it was really, it was sort of just out of necessity that this sort of thing got created. If we hadn't had this ability, then it would have taken me at least 10 times as long to get this solution done, because I would have needed to have downloaded the installation media from their SCCM environments, packaged the solutions up, all verified, and then uploaded it on my amazing Australian internet connection, which has an upload speed of 5 meg at best.
Nice.
So, doing it this way, I immediately uploaded the installation media to a blob store that's super fast anyway. And then my build environment was sitting on a VM in Azure, so it was rapid. It was very, very fast to do this.
And so, to create those YAML files, did you programmatically grab the installation command line information, detection method information directly from Config Manager?
I did not, but I can. So our good friend Steve has actually got, let's say, 90% of that solution written. So because the information we can access from the the SCCM commandlets, it's actually quite easy to pull that information.
Well, what we actually use in that situation is the SMS provider. So we go and do the WQL queries and pull that information back, and then from there step into each of the components and turn it into a JSON object.
And you know what you get to do moving forward, right? The Config Manager administration service.
Well, and that's
it's just a web API.
Yep.
And now you can, with 1910, they've got WMI methods and the whole works. And
so the next step, the next step we then would leverage into is the cloud distribution point concept, and we go and hit the cloud DP for the content for application X, download it into a web server in the client site or in Azure, wherever, and then you could process it straight up into Azure.
And you could put this into Azure Functions to hit that.
You would do it in, so you wouldn't do it in Azure Functions, and the reason you wouldn't do it in Azure Functions, Power Apps or Azure Automation.
Power Automation.
Power Automation. There's a joke t-shirt that I'm working on for that one. But yeah, so the key reason you wouldn't do it in a function app is that it has an inherent timeout limit of, by default, 5 minutes, up to a maximum of 10 minutes. So if you had large applications that took longer than 10 minutes, it would time out and it would fail.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Whereas the other scenarios don't. So that's.
I mean, I know we're not talking about Config Manager, but like, if you've been around me for the last year or so, you know that I'm a huge fan of the work they're doing on the Config Manager admin service. It is the next most amazing thing, and it's going to enable so much stuff. And so the idea that that you can consume your Config Manager environment with a web API that you could then leverage and shove directly into this, which would mean, oh, and by the way, you can run that API from anywhere through your cloud management gateway, which means you don't even have to be on-prem or access to your console or have access to commandlets or PowerShell remoting or anything. You can just fully leverage it from the cloud.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, sorry, don't mean to derail, but I wanted to at least take a moment and acknowledge how, like, this is significant. This solution, which, as we said, is available on GitHub today. You can start leveraging this stuff. This is quite amazing.
Completely. And I mean, not to harp on what we've been saying, but all this is doing is leveraging existing APIs that Microsoft have created and made available for us. And the fact that they're doing that for SCCM now means that all the learning that we're doing around Intune and Graph and Azure in general can be applied to SCCM. So
I'm sorry, you keep saying SCCM. That product doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, sorry, Endpoint Manager.
MIMCM, Config Manager. Yeah.
I guess I'm just an old head. I can't help it.
It's all right.
Okay,
but yeah, you're right. It's all about putting the puzzle pieces together because the pieces are all there. If you can dream it up, you just got to figure out how the pieces go together and stitch it up. And so I love that there's folks in the community that are like you, that are putting this stuff out there for other people to use. So you're putting in the effort to solve a real problem and making this stuff available. So it's freaking awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, so let's go through. So, I was talking in VSCode, and I was saying that we're, running tasks, and I'm saying that we're doing things, but I never really sort of explained what tasks are. And I feel like not that many people have a grasp on that concept. So now that we've seen what we can do, I think it might be a good idea just to go and do a real quick hello world scenario, just to show everyone how easy it is to actually do this stuff.
So Ben, before you do that, can you, since we're looking at the completed solution, can you just give us a peek at the tasks that you just ran before you go in and show creating a new one from scratch? Definitely.
Okay, so when you create tasks, they go into the root of your workspace or the folder that you're actually building in a folder called .vscode. what we're specifically looking for here is the tasks.json file. And all this is very similar to the YAML config. This is the config that explains to VS Code what my tasks are and how to run them. So we can go through sort of each of them. They're very simple. All they're doing is triggering a very specific PowerShell script that I have in my tasks folder. It can be anywhere, but this is where you define it. So the first task I have is initialize environment. It's literally just kicking off initialize.environment.ps1. There's a couple of other little bits of information here, but we can go into those later. But the meat of the task is just, this is the command that I want to run, and it will run it for me. The build task starts having a little more advanced stuff. So we can see we've got variables that need to be expanded out. So things like file, for example, the benefit of running tasks in VS Code means that I get access to a whole bunch of environment variables within VS Code that I wouldn't normally have. So this file variable, when I run a task, is replaced or expanded out to be whatever the file is that I have open when I run that task. So when I built and deployed my solution, I had the app.yaml file open. So instead of having to know exactly where that is or what the path is, I just say, I want file. And it's going to give me the full path so that I don't necessarily need to worry about that, and I don't have to start thinking about hard coding variables, which is a very, very bad thing when you start getting into the dev space. And finally, we've got this other variable, which has this input command in front of it. This is the key to when the command palette popped up and asked whether I wanted local or remote. So what we're essentially doing is
prompting for input.
Prompting for input. Imagine a good version of read host, and you're getting fairly close to what we're doing here. So we'll go through that as well. But finally, we've got publish. So exactly the same deal. We're just running one script. We've got that same file variable. And again, we have another input user. Now, these two inputs that I've got are two different kinds of inputs, and they're the only two current kinds of inputs that you can have. And we'll look at that now. Build and publish is the exact same thing as build and publish, but what it's doing is it says it depends on build to run publish. So what that means is that it's going to go, I have to run the build task first, and then I will run the publish task. So that's how I sort of chain those tasks together. And that's how you chain all tasks together. Yeah.
I'm being inspired already. I've got some ideas.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear. So this final section here is the inputs. So this is what we were talking about before. So we've got two different kinds of inputs. One is a pick string and one is a prompt string. So pick lets you pick from options, so remote and local. And we set a default to local. And prompt will literally just ask you for your global admin account for UPN deployment. And if I actually, it should just be as simple as doing it this way. Task run task, just to show you that this change has now gone into effect. So my command palette is now saying enter the global admin account for UPN for deployment. So it's getting all this information from this config file immediately as soon as you save it. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is what my my relatively advanced task sequence looks like in this solution. And it looks like it might have been quite complex to make, but that's where I want to show you that it's actually really, really easy to do this sort of stuff, and there's no harm in just having a play.
And before you go on, so so you're consuming the YAML file that you had open, but you're not, but you're passing it as a, I mean, all that is a PS1 file that you're passing parameters to inside that file. So you're not actually opening up that YAML file inside, like the task is not opening the YAML and reading it in this context. It's calling a script that then opens that YAML file and does things to it. So I can't have that YAML file, or maybe I can. I guess that's my question. Is so where I'm doing my input, user input, where it's prompting, could you have it read in the content of the file, of your YAML file, to pass parameters to the task here, or do you need to pass the whole file to the script?
No. So the short answer is no. The long answer is, if we have a look in our VS Code or a .VSCode file, we actually have this thing called settings.json. So if you wanted to start setting some things, this is where you have global variables that are available to your tasks. So this is where you can start putting some stuff in that you don't have to point specifically to a file. It will just grab this content from here. The key thing around tasks, and this is the key thing around any sort of automated workflow, is that all the task is doing is what you tell it to do. There's not a lot of meat behind it. All it's going is, I have a command that I need to run. What do I do with that command? So it's not actually doing anything other than running this PowerShell for me. So if this PowerShell did nothing, nothing would happen.
Gotcha.
Yeah?
Yeah. So this is like an Excel macro. I like it.
It's like an Excel macro. Exactly. Okay, so
trying to put it in a real world context, man. Come on, everybody knows Excel macros.
Yeah. Oh God, I haven't done that in a very long time. All right, so let's create a hello world. Let's create from nothing and just show you how simple it is. I'm going to open up now. One key thing that I will say is that if any of you have not used VS Code at all, and you simply open it up and you want to start playing with tasks, it's not going to work. You need to open VS Code and then open a folder, because it needs to be in what is called a workspace for this functionality to exist. Because simply opening a single file is kind of like opening Notepad and just reading something. The actual benefit of VS Code is when you start using it like a development tool, and that is to open up a workspace. And
I was very excited to find out that you could actually add folders to the workspace, so you could have multiple folders open at the same time as part of your workspace that were not all in the same sub.
You can. And it's good if you have restraint. If you end up opening 5 or 6 different folders in your workspace and they all have changes that need to be committed into your Git repository, it can become an absolute nightmare. But yes, it is good. All right, so we're going to open this Intune.training folder that has nothing in it.
And just for those of you at home, if you're doing VS Code for the first time, this is, so if you said, if you were adding a folder to your workspace, it would have just left what he had already open and then just added to it. But when you do this, where you open a folder, you're actually changing the entire content, or you're changing the workspace. So it closes and recreates the entire session for you here.
And that's important to talk about as well, because if I added this folder to that existing workspace, all of the tasks that I had in that environment would still be available to me. Whereas because I've now created a brand new workspace with only this folder, I now no longer have those tasks, which is what we wanted to sort of see. So if I open up the command palette, which you can see in the middle of the screen here, it says Control-Shift-P, or as I said, F1. We're going to go into, now you might not see this straight away. The easiest way to get to it is just start typing tasks, and you'll see run task. Because we don't have any tasks to find, it's going to tell us that there are no tasks to find, and would you like to configure tasks? So we're going to say yes.
You would think that would be a function of configure tasks, would just be an option there, but no, let's run tasks so that we can then configure tasks. If
we go back and we go tasks, it is actually an option. Configure default build task.
Okay, gotcha.
It is, but so, and this is a very real thing for me. I went in and was like, I wonder what tasks I have available. I had no idea. I genuinely did not know how to configure a task. I just hit run task, figured it might kick something off, and I got this. There's no tasks. Would you like to configure them? And that's what stepped me down this garden path.
I got you.
Cool. So we're going to go in. We're going to create a task from a template. And here we get some options on what the tasks are. Now, the concept of tasks and builds more around source code and like actual proper development of software solutions. So a lot of these scenarios are for things where you need to actually compile code. We're not doing that. So we're going to ignore these 3 options for MS Build, Maven, and .NET Core, because we're not building a solution using any of these tools. We're just going to go into others. And what happens is we immediately get that .VSCode file and the task.json file with a very basic template for our first task. So we can see here that the first task that we've got is going to be called echo. It's a shell task, which literally just means it's going to run something in the native shell. You can set that to either be command or PowerShell or whatever terminal that you have. If you're running this on Linux or Mac, you can get access to Bash or to the terminal in Mac as well. And the command that it is going to run, it's literally going to say echo hello.
So this would be equivalent to just opening the command prompt window and typing echo hello, or putting that in a bash file or whatever. So that's all it's doing is
exactly. So we'll kick this off and we'll just see what it does. It is pretty simple. But this time when we hit run task, we actually see echo here because it's looked at that task config file and it can see that we now have a task. So we run this, we're going to get this big wall of text. Now this is the first thing that I saw and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is way too confusing. The first option here is continue without scanning the task output. I'll explain how to get past that, and I strongly recommend for those that are just playing that you just input this thing that I'll show you shortly so that you don't see this, because we're not worrying about troubleshooting our code. We just want to spit the content out or do the thing. But we'll let it run.
And that kind of goes back to your previous statement of we're not compiling real, we're not writing solutions, writing code, writing programs, which would require much more control over the compiling and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like if once you start getting comfortable with this sort of stuff, that can then lead you down that path of maybe I really enjoy this. Maybe I'm going to start looking at, task automation for other scenarios, like I'm going to go into Azure DevOps and I'm going to look at builder pipelines and things like that. This is a really good way to get your sort of feet wet in this scenario if you've never done this sort of stuff before. So if we have a look in the terminal here, we can see it's executed the task and it's pumped that out. That's it, right? That's a very basic hello world. And we close it off. So what we'll do now is we'll add a little bit of meat to this to make it a little more elegant. So as I said, the first thing that we really want to do is we want to stop that prompt to ask how we're going to handle errors or debugs. So if we just add a comma. Now this is all JSON files. So if you don't know how to build JSON files, go and learn. It's really important. Now we're going to simply put in a problem matcher. Now all of this is autocomplete as well. So start typing and it's going to give you hints on what you need to put in. And specifically, if you're in the tasks section, it's only going to give you things that can exist in the task section. So it's very easy to have a play around. So what we're going to do here is we can obviously see these are all the things that popped up when we ran the task, but I don't want any to come up. So I'm just going to say none. So if we just save that and we run the task again, it's just going to kick off immediately. It's going to do its thing, and that's it.
And so that's the way that you suppressed that dialogue that dropped down there.
That's correct. We're essentially just suppressing any checking. So don't worry about like error handling for all intents and purpose. If you've got errors in your code that you're going to kick off or errors in the task, you still will see those, but you're not going to get the benefits of the smarts. Like there's so many different error handling solutions in here that would be handy if you were doing things in like JavaScript or C#, for example. But we don't need those for now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to put in a real basic variable, so just so that we can see how the variables and the inputs are actually created. So this is a hello world example. So let's literally do a hello world. I'm going to add in an input. So as I said, input, and then whatever the name of the variable that you want to call it. Let's call it planets. And I'm going to put some brackets around this. Or some quotes, rather. So it's the exact same command. If we run this right now, we should get a weird error. So it says here, variable planets must be defined in an input section. So obviously it's going, I need to expand this. There's nothing to expand, and it's fallen over. So that's where I was saying, like, we're not handling errors here, but the environment will still look after you. So yeah, it's very easy. Okay, so now we'll set that input. And I actually have one here that I've prepared earlier, but I will start putting it in. So we can see inputs here. And we're just going to create one. So the first thing is an ID. Is it going to autocomplete for me? Oh, sweet. My computer's running very slow. Skype is consuming some resources. Okay, the ID is the name of the variable, so we're going to call that planets. The type is going to be so by default it says prompt string, but what we actually want is, for this scenario, we want a pic string.
And the pic string gives you options instead of a prompt string, which is a free text.
Exactly, yeah, that's correct. Okay, description is what's going to come up underneath the pic string, or the prompt, if you put it that way. Cool, nice and easy. And finally, the sort of the key for pic strings is this thing called options. So in here, we have just a list of options that we want to be able to pick from. So what I'll do here is, because I'm not going to type all these myself, we've got, let's make it nice and clean. We've got all the planets, including Pluto, because it's still a planet in my eyes.
You know, that's right.
Yeah. And finally, we're going to set a default. Okay, so just by default, let's say that we want to say hello to Earth. Cool, so that task is now built. If we hit F1 or Control-Shift-P to open up our command palette, we go back into Run Task. We see Echo. Actually, let's stop that and give it a nicer name, because I don't like that name. Hello world, test. Run task, hello world test. First thing we should get is, which planet are we going to say hello to? So we can see here, Earth has been set as default. We have all the different planets. Let's say hello to Pluto. Terminal comes up, and we can see here that it said hello Pluto. So that just shows you how simple it is to build out these solutions. And if anyone sees value in what this is doing, good on you. Because it's essentially what this means is that if you have a really complex script that you just need to kick off every single time you do a certain thing, put it in here and it becomes part of your workflow. As I was saying earlier, the benefit to me was that I was packaging and scripting these applications for the customer in VS Code already, so I didn't want to have to leave VS Code to do further work, because that slows down my workflow and stops my process of what I'm doing. So this really sped things up for me.
Well, I definitely. I said I was getting inspired already. Like I've got monthly servicing scripts that I use for imaging and things like that. Where I've got 6 different scripts that I'm managing, that I'm doing certain things to, steps to, whatever. And I generally just open each script up and edit the variables and go with it. But being able to maybe change those to consume a config file instead of a bunch of parameters in a string, and then be able to pass those or string them together, I think is really powerful. So I like this. Definitely. This is pretty cool.
Excellent.
Well, man, you have I don't know about anybody else, but my head is sure is a little bit mush from this. This is a lot of information to absorb. So, I think you showed us 2 really amazing things. You showed us being able to automate the packaging of Win32 apps into Intune, and showed us how to also really take VS Code to a next level and be able to use tasks. This is awesome, Ben. Thank you for sharing. And I know we said if you stayed to the end, the URL to this stuff in the repository is Ben's GitHub is tabs not spaces, tabs dash not dot spaces, or I keep saying dot not dot tabs dash not spaces. And so if you go there, you can see his Intune app deploy repo, where he'll probably be still continuing to make updates to this. And if you really want to be awesome, feel free to do a pull request on it and contribute some code to it if you want to help contribute to the community here. So Ben, thank you so much for stopping by, and we hope to see you again soon.
Of course, anytime.
Oh,
you can find me on all of the socials. I am on what's my Twitter? Powers-Hell. I'm very, very Powers_Hell. I'm very, very social on all of these things, I promise. I just am having a mental blank on all of the things. Twitter and GitHub are my two main things. So strongly recommend following me if you feel like doing that. But really, I hope that there was some value in this, and you guys want to start using it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. We really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
All right,
thank you.
Cool. So yeah, hope everybody really enjoyed that session with Ben and Adam. We're having a lot of fun with this, obviously. Underneath you'll find a whole heap of links to Ben's repo and all of the concepts. And obviously, hit us up if there's anything you want us to talk about. We'll be re-recording the App Locker video shortly, as you may have seen that we had an issue with that. We didn't expect, so we've pulled that video and we'll put a replacement one up in the coming weeks. So you can find me. So I'm Steve Hosking. You can find me at OnPrem Cloud Guy on Twitter.
Okay. And I'm Adam Gross, and that is at Adam Gross TX on Twitter. And all of our other info is down below. And that's it.
Cool. Thanks
everybody.
Ben.
Thanks Steve. See ya.
Bye.